My beloved child, stop scrolling. Pause here for a moment, because something has been pressing against the silence surrounding your heart, and you have felt it even if you could not explain it. There is a truth someone connected to your soul has been carrying in secret, and the weight of keeping it hidden has become heavier than they ever expected. What you are about to hear is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to prepare you, because there is something your soulmate has wanted to tell you for longer than you realize, and every time they came close to revealing it, fear pulled them back into silence. You have probably wondered why their energy feels different lately, why their presence seems close one moment and distant the next. Why you can suddenly think of them for no obvious reason, only to feel a strange heaviness settle over your heart. Why memories of them return at unexpected times. Why something inside you keeps whispering that there is more to the story than what you were told. My beloved child, listen carefully. You are not being asked to chase anyone. You are not being asked to wait beside your phone. You are not being asked to build your life around a person who has not yet found the courage to speak. You are being asked to understand what has been happening beneath the surface, because sometimes a person can hide a truth from your eyes while their heart is revealing it in 100 invisible ways. And your soulmate has been revealing it without realizing it, in the pauses, in the silence, in the words they almost said, in the messages they started and never sent, in the moments when they seemed distant even though something inside them was desperately trying to move closer. There is pain behind that distance, but there is also something else, regret, deep regret. The kind that arrives late at night when distractions disappear and there is nowhere left to hide from your own thoughts. That is when they think about you. That is when the questions become impossible to silence. What if I had told them the truth? What if I had stayed? What if I had been brave? What if they knew what was really happening inside me? And there is one question they are terrified to answer. What if I already lost them because I was too afraid to be honest? That question has been eating at them. You may have believed they were simply moving on. You may have watched their silence and assumed it meant they no longer cared. Perhaps you even convinced yourself that they had forgotten everything. But what if their silence was never peace? What if it was pressure? What if every day they remained quiet, the truth inside them became harder to carry, because there is something they have been hiding? And it is not necessarily the secret your fear has imagined. It is not a story designed to make you suspicious of everyone around you. It is much more emotional than that. They have been hiding the depth of what they feel. They have been hiding how deeply the separation affected them. They have been hiding how often they think about you. And most painfully of all, they have been hiding the real reason they pulled away. That reason has everything to do with something they believed about themselves. Something they were ashamed to admit, something they thought would make you see them differently. My beloved child, there are people who walk away because they stop caring, and there are people who walk away because caring becomes too frightening. Your soulmate belongs to the second story. They were overwhelmed by what the connection demanded from them, because you did not simply touch their heart, you touched the places they had spent years protecting. You saw things they had learned to hide from everyone else. You could sense when their smile was false. You could hear the sadness underneath their words. You could notice when something was wrong even when they insisted they were fine. And that kind of emotional closeness can be terrifying to someone who has survived by keeping their deepest feelings locked away. They were not prepared for someone who could see through them. They wanted you, but they were afraid of being known by you. There is a difference, and that difference created the silence you experienced. They thought if they created enough distance, the intensity would disappear. They thought if they became busy enough, distracted enough, emotionally unavailable enough, the connection would eventually lose its power. Instead, something unexpected happened. The farther they moved from you, the louder your absence became. The quiet became filled with memories. Ordinary places became reminders, songs became dangerous, certain dates became difficult, and sometimes they would hear someone laugh in a particular way, smell a familiar fragrance, see a place that looked strangely similar to somewhere you once stood. And suddenly you were there again, not physically, but emotionally, and that is when they discovered something they had never wanted to admit. They had not moved on, they had only moved away. There is a painful difference. Moving on means the heart has accepted the ending. Moving away can simply mean the heart is running from what it cannot understand. They have been running, but they are tired now. Very tired. And this is where the hidden truth becomes deeper. They are not only carrying feelings for you, they are carrying guilt. They remember things they wish they had done differently, words they wish they had chosen differently, moments when you needed reassurance and they gave you silence. Moments when you reached toward them emotionally and they stepped backward. Moments when you asked what was wrong and they said nothing. There was always something. There was always something behind the "I'm fine." And you may have sensed it. You may have thought you were imagining things. You were not. There were battles happening inside them that they did not know how to explain. They were fighting their own fears, their own insecurities, their own past, their own belief that if someone truly knew them, eventually that person would leave. And so, in the most heartbreaking way, they created the very distance they were afraid of experiencing. They pushed you away because they feared losing you. They became quiet because they feared saying the wrong thing. They acted detached because they feared revealing how attached they actually were. They tried to appear unaffected because admitting that you mattered would have made them vulnerable. And now they are paying the emotional price for that decision. My beloved child, this is why you must not measure the entire truth by what happened on the surface. Surface behavior can be misleading when a person is fighting themselves. A person can say "I don't care" while secretly wondering whether you are okay. A person can walk away while looking back. A person can delete a conversation while remembering every word. A person can pretend to be happy while privately grieving something they cannot replace. And your soulmate has been carrying a private grief, not necessarily because they believe they can possess you, not because you belong to them, but because they know they mishandled something precious. That realization has been growing, slowly, quietly, painfully. There was a night when they finally admitted it to themselves. No audience, no performance, no pretending, just them and the truth. They whispered something they had avoided saying for a long time. I hurt them. And once those words entered their mind, everything they had buried began rising to the surface. They remembered your patience, your kindness, your attempts to understand, your willingness to communicate. They remembered how many chances you gave them to speak, and they realized that perhaps you were not asking for too much, perhaps they were simply giving too little. That realization broke something inside them, because regret becomes especially painful when you realize the person you pushed away was never asking you to be perfect. They were asking you to be present, and they were not. Now they are wondering whether it is too late. That question has become a private torment. Have I waited too long? Would they even listen now? Would they believe me? Would they forgive me? Would they think I'm only coming back because I'm lonely? Those questions have kept them silent. But silence is becoming unbearable, and that is why you may be sensing movement. Something is changing, not necessarily in a way you can see yet, but emotionally. A wall is weakening. They are beginning to understand that avoiding the truth does not protect anyone. It only delays the pain, and the truth they are hiding is not simply that they miss you. It is that they have never fully understood how much losing you would affect them until they actually had to live without your presence. They discovered that some people can be replaced in daily routines, but some people cannot be replaced in the emotional architecture of your life. You became part of theirs, and they did not realize it until you were gone. That is why they sometimes catch themselves wanting to tell you something. Something happened during their day, and instinctively they think of you. They see something funny and imagine your reaction. They hear a song and remember a conversation. They experience something difficult and wonder what you would say. And then reality returns. You are not there. That realization hurts. But the deepest pain comes afterward. Because then they ask themselves why they allowed it to become this way. My beloved child, there is a truth about your soulmate that you may never have known. They have been carrying an emotional wound that predates you. You again. They cannot come pretending nothing happened. They cannot offer a shallow apology. They cannot simply say they were busy. They cannot hide behind circumstances. They will have to tell you why. And there is a particular truth they want you to know. It is the truth they have rehearsed in their mind countless times. They want to tell you that their distance was not because you were unworthy. It was because they did not know how to handle what they felt. They want to tell you that their silence was not proof that they forgot. It was proof that they were afraid. They want to tell you that they sometimes looked perfectly fine while privately falling apart. But there is one part they are still struggling to confess. The part that makes their heart tighten every time they think about speaking, because it involves a decision they made after you separated, a decision they believed would help them forget you. They thought it would finally make the pain disappear. Instead, it made them realize something much more painful. They were trying to replace an emotional connection they had never truly understood. And the consequences of that decision followed them. They have never told you what happened. Perhaps they believed telling you would only make things worse. Perhaps they were ashamed. Perhaps they feared you would think they had betrayed everything you once shared. But the truth has been sitting inside them, waiting, and now they are beginning to realize that if there is ever going to be peace between you, the truth cannot remain buried forever. This is why the energy feels urgent, not because something terrible is destined to happen, but because hidden things eventually demand daylight. Secrets grow heavier when they are carried alone, and your soulmate has been carrying this one for too long. They have smiled while carrying it, they have worked while carrying it, they have spoken to other people while carrying it, they have gone through ordinary days while carrying it, and then, when night arrives and everything becomes quiet, the truth returns. You, the memories, the regret, the unanswered questions, and the words they never said. There is one sentence they have wanted to tell you more than anything, but every time they imagine saying it, they become afraid of what your eyes might reveal, because they know you have changed, they know you are not standing where they left you, and perhaps that is what makes this moment so important. If they reach out, they will not simply be contacting the person they remember, they will be meeting the person you have become, and you have become stronger. You have learned how to live through unanswered questions. You have learned how to smile with a wounded heart. You have learned how to release what you cannot control. You have learned that love without respect is not enough. You have learned that longing is not the same as alignment, and perhaps most importantly, you have learned that you can survive losing someone you thought you could never live without. That is why the next chapter cannot be written by desperation. It must be written by truth. If your soulmate returns, let them return honestly. If they speak, listen without immediately surrendering your boundaries. If they apologize, allow their actions to show whether the apology has roots. If they reveal their secret, remember that understanding someone does not require you to excuse everything they did. You can have compassion and boundaries at the same time. You can forgive and still choose wisely. You can love someone and still protect your peace. And this is exactly the wisdom heaven wants you to carry into whatever comes next, because there is a moment approaching, a moment when the hidden truth will no longer remain hidden. Your soulmate has been preparing to say something, not casually, not playfully, not as a random conversation. They have been searching for the right moment. And the strange part is that the opportunity may arrive when neither of you expects it. It may begin with the smallest thing, a message, a question, a familiar name appearing, a chance encounter, a simple sentence that opens a door neither of you realized was still there. But beneath that small beginning will be a much larger confession. And when it happens, you may initially wonder why they are telling you now, why after all this time, why after so much silence, why after you finally began healing. The answer is hidden inside the truth they have been carrying, because something happened recently that made them realize they could not continue living with it. Something made the cost of silence greater than the fear of confession. Something brought them face to face with the possibility that you could disappear from their life permanently, and that was the moment their heart finally surrendered. They realized that even if you rejected them, knowing the truth would be better than spending the rest of their life wondering what might have happened if they had been brave. But, my beloved child, there is one final piece you do not yet know. The secret they are hiding is connected to the moment they realized they had not lost their feelings for you. It is connected to someone else, to a conversation, to a decision. and to something they were told that changed the way they looked at your entire connection. They heard words they were not prepared to hear, words that forced them to confront the possibility that what they had been calling the past was never truly finished, and after hearing those words, they did something they had avoided doing for a very long time. They opened the place where they had kept the last trace of you, they looked at it, they stared at it for a long time, and then they began to cry, not because they were weak, because they finally stopped pretending. For the first time, they allowed themselves to admit what they had been hiding from everyone, including themselves. They still love you, but that is not the whole truth. There is something beneath those words, something more painful. Something they believe could change everything if you ever discover it, and they have been terrified of telling you because they do not know whether the truth will bring you closer, or finally make you walk away forever. And my beloved child, that is where I need you to remain still, because the secret they are carrying is about to come into the light, but before it does, you need to understand why they hid it in the first place, because the reason they kept it from you is not what you think, and when you discover what happened on the night they finally admitted the truth to themselves, you will understand why they have been carrying this pain alone, and why the message they are preparing to send you may begin with 5 words you never expected to read.